there are times I'm really disappointed in modern anthropologists because they don't know what they're talking about. If you don't know what an anthropologist is somebody who studies humanity, human cultures, religions, all that sort of stuff, right? And they tell us the human story. I was headed into an anthropology, humanities career. I still consider myself an anthropologist at heart, but of course, at some point, I just took a sidetrack from that, and I have a master's degree. Regardless, sometimes the academics, the people in charge of all the research, they're doing this research and they're coming to conclusions that they like, but they have no idea how people work because they're so disconnected from actual humanity. Some of this has to do with the fact that they don't have families. For instance, there was in some research quite a while ago, that came out that said that our ancestors used to wake up all the time in the middle of the night. And somehow it got through academic papers, through research to publication, everything, with people having the idea of, we don't know what happened. Maybe this is the time when they're making lots of babies. Hoo hoo hoo. And I'm just sitting there like, are you idiots? Like, how did you miss this? They're all getting up in the middle of the night because they're having babies. Babies wake you up in the middle of the night. And this is a time all humanity throughout human history is having 10 to 20 kids in order, because 3 of them may make it to adulthood, and you have to have more of those than the neighbors next to you before they take all your stuff. I mean, that's all there is to it, right? That's why they're getting up in the middle of the night. And they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense because only one partner would be getting up in the middle of the night, maybe just the mom. It's like, what are you thinking? 99% of humanity has been living in 1-bedroom houses or tents or huts their entire lives. What are you missing? Like, baby gets up, everybody gets up. I don't understand how they missed this. They just don't know how families work. The other one was in Japanese culture. There was a time in early Japanese culture where they did research and they found, oh, look, it looks like there's the terminology for men coming into the house and literally stealing daughters from the fathers, and they don't have permanent residency there. So the daughters belong to their dads, and they literally have to sneak in order to impregnate the daughters in order to have babies. What a weird culture. There's no nuclear family at all. I'm sitting there like, okay, if you think about this just beyond just very basic, like pre-mortem, post-mortem process for your decision-making in this model, you would figure out what's wrong with that. Because it says the father's in charge of the house. So if there is no such thing as a man taking a woman and building a house on their own, well then how in the world does the father become the head of any of those houses? What happens in the next generation? Like, they don't even think that far. They're like, oh, well, if the father dies, then maybe mom takes over the house and she's really the one in charge of the house. Okay, except that's not what the source data tells you. The father is the one in charge of the daughter, and it's like, did you not understand that in the next generation, if the father's in charge, that somewhere in there, they went and got their own home, and they built a family, a nuclear family? I think they're just super excited about something that doesn't look like traditional Western values, and that they're just so happy to just say, hey, look, something different, woohoo! See, Western values doesn't necessarily work everywhere. And you're sitting there like, okay, really? I mean, we've seen this model that is seeming to be played out in Japan in ancient history before. It's happening right now in Western society when you're all just promiscuous, That happens all the time. A guy doesn't have a house or a place or anything, and it just means you're poor, and then you impregnate a girl that's still living with her father, but at some point, you go and build your own family if you do things right. And if you don't, well, yeah, that sucks. And maybe there was just a time in Japanese history. But yeah, it definitely doesn't mean that the culture is completely radically different somehow, this alien that you think it is. And I feel like anthropologists, when you're so stuffed in academia and you're behind books, you're not really seeing reality because you're not a part of it. If you don't have a family, you don't know. If you're not engaging people, you don't know. All you read is the research. And really, that's been the same thing throughout all of history. I mean, people that do research and they read books, they know books and they know research. But they're not the ones that synthesize it and put it together for a workable model for us to learn from. Those are other people that do that understand the research and put that together. And so I think that there's been some conflation there. And I think that sometimes I regret not finishing my PhD and then getting on into anthropology and making contributions that maybe would have stopped you guys from publishing this stuff before it became nonsense. I don't know. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I am where I am. At least I can write books. On that regard, I have a great anthropological book, historical fiction, coming out, Beast of Babylon, pretty soon. If you want to read about Nebuchadnezzar and his fall into insanity, and then historically just the most likely scenario that would have created that situation, and then his redemption to the throne, I'm sure it would be a great read if you're interested in that. But if not, then whatever. I hope you got something from this video. Just take time to synchronize reality and research and just use common sense. That's what I miss. I miss the common sense being involved in research all the time. Or non-bias, since 70% of papers are now biased because they're being funded by somebody, self-admittedly. It's another crisis in academia.